So there are quite a few ways to color a black and white image. If you use hue saturation, what really happens is just the hue changes. But since this is black and white and the black and white images don't have any hue in them, what you really have to do is you have to add color to it. So down here where the gradient tool is, if you keep the bottom right arrow pressed, you will find the bucket tool. And these images that are here, their mode, if you see the mode, image mode is grayscale. If you try to add color to a grayscale, the color comes as gray. So we don't want that. We wanted the color. So you need to change it to RGB or CMYK. CMYK is used for print. So this one I've already changed. I've changed the mode to RGB and 8 bits per channel. That's 16.7 million colors. I'll very quickly talk to you about the color schemes, and I will apply two schemes. I would like you guys to apply two schemes if you're doing this exercise, because it's a simple color exercise and you can really make it nice. I'll show you how to make it a bit, how to make it have some depth rather than just flat color. Okay, so let's have a look at some color schemes. Where is my favorite color scheme tool? I'll just close my XAMPP. I'll just stop. So if I go to, I think, wellstyled.com, it has got a few tools, and it has got quite a few color schemes there. So I'm just going to go to color scheme generator. I typically use two schemes. One is a monochromatic scheme with different shades. Now, if you do enough photography or art, you will see that even looking at a sky, the sky is not flat. Even looking at a room, it's not a flat color. You will see that it's brighter there where the window is, it's darker here, brighter where the shades are. Nothing is flat. There's nothing that is flat. We will start with flat colors, but I'll show you how to get a bit more depth in. And the various shades. Even if you were to use a monocolor scheme on an image like this one, you would still want the foreground mono scheme to be in contrast with the background monocolor scheme. So they should stand out. Okay, that's very important. And that's what I'm going to do. It's very easy for colors to stand out when you're using complementary scheme. Yep, the yellow stands out on blue, and as I go around the wheel, pretty easy. They stand out from each other. And I use these two schemes very often. And you can see here it is suggested that green be used as a punch color. So it's not used in equal proportions. When you use complementary colors, what happens is you use all the colors from one particular tone and you use colors from the opposite side mildly to give it a bit of a punch, like the way you use spice, the way you use salt in cooking and stuff like that. So I look at two schemes. In complementary, I have a favorite. If I go to complementary, this is one of my favorite schemes. You can adjust the scheme, you can adjust the hues, you can adjust the darkness and so on. But for me, once I have the idea of the color, I do that in Photoshop. I know that I have to adjust the brightness and lightness. These are sample files. You can see they're from stock image, they're thumbnails. I'm just using them as an example to show you color schemes. I can't use these images, but just to keep up with our theme of Viking, our Viking models, I thought, okay, it's okay. So first, let me go to my layers menu. I don't know why I have so many things here. Just going to try and get some more space. And F7 is my layer menu. Yep. I make a new layer. Now I want my background unlocked. So I double click on it. Bring this empty layer down. just to have two layers. So I've got a layer behind, and I have already changed my mode to RGB, so I'm ready to color. There are a few ways of coloring it. Let me first change my scale image canvas size. So I'm not resizing the image itself, but what I'm saying is image canvas size. The canvas size in pixels should be okay. I'll take about 600 by 600. Yeah, that's okay. And you want to compose it, and you can see these posters. You can see posters how things are composed in a frame, and I tend to use the rule of thirds. And you can see I've already occupied 2/3 and 1/3. When you take a photograph of a scene, a scenery, a landscape, you will see if the ground is more beautiful, it occupies the top third. And the sky is more beautiful, the horizon sits on the lower third. So if you divide the frame into three horizontal parts, beautiful sky, horizon sits on the lower third. Beautiful landscape, horizon sits on the upper third. So you can use those rule of thirds. If you are wondering what I'm talking about, rule of thirds, I think I mentioned it in this class before. Rule of thirds, just have a look, see compositions, and you can see focus on the foreground, and so on and so forth. See the horizon sitting on the top third and the subject sitting on one of the thirds. Again, you can see this sky and ocean. It just happens here, the land and sky, horizon sitting on the lower third. So your composition starts getting taken care of once you start thinking of the rule of thirds, and eventually you don't even think about it. It becomes ingrained in your design. It becomes ingrained. It becomes a habit, a good habit. Okay, now our job is to color it. Let me pick up a scheme, and I'll just go with blues and violets and a monochromatic scheme first. So let me start. So I need blue. Now there's a very popular gradient in Photoshop. There's a very popular gradient. It's a pre-built one. That's the one for reflection. That's a sky. Okay, I'm just going to make my own because I'm using a monochromatic scheme. I might use some kind of a darkish scene, a night scene. And night scenes are not fully black. You will see tones of grayish, blues, and even the subtlest difference in two colors will give you a nice gradient. So I might reverse it, use the X key, have a darker on top and a brighter below, because it is my plan to have this guy glowing. So the horizon is bright and sort of he's standing out in all brightness. I'll start with that. And the reason, again, the reason why I did this instead of going edit, fill, foreground color, the reason for choosing this over this is because you don't see flat things, and that's what I was trying to explain. And I'll try not to keep it flat. But if you apply a color scheme with flat colors, I'm happy to take it. And that is a legitimate style. Being a manga artist or whatever, you know the styles, and legitimate styles. I don't want to impose my style on you. I'm just doing something that I like. The important thing in this exercise is to choose two color schemes and to apply them. Okay, two color schemes. So I'm going for the monochromatic one, and then I'll do the next one. One way of getting this one being a black and white image, I can get rid of a lot of things, but it's very important to put anti-aliasing on. Very important. If you did not do that, see what happens. Can you see those white edges? All of those white edges? That happens because anti-aliasing was off. Even when you fill, if you don't put anti-aliasing, you'll get really bad edges. You don't want that. So even if you are clearing up things, anti-aliasing must be on. And you can see now it's much cleaner. Probably still not as clean as I would like it to be. Why 56? I don't know. Just wanted a higher value. what I could do is when you have something in big format and you scale it down, those edges get fixed up. So you can see those edges would get fixed up. But certainly you want it anti-aliased. I'll leave it like this and we'll start our work. I'll make another layer and I'm going to start coloring into these things. One thing you can do is, and it works if you have a complicated image like graffiti, that you take a brush and you take a color. I'm adjusting the size of the brush and I'm painting here inside the white area. Now this top thing, if I say multiply, it will kill the white. Okay, so the multiply dies off, and now my brush has got a problem here, but you can see as I'm painting in the bottom layer, my brush seems to have got a scatter. Okay, now it's okay. You can see I'm painting on the bottom layer. See that? I'm painting in the bottom layer and it's seen on top because of multiply. Normal, nothing is seen. If I say screen, the black will become transparent. So there are different ways of doing that. But in today's case, I'll leave this as normal and I'm going to use our standard, without destroying this, I'm going to use our standard practice of bucket tool. So there's a bucket, I'll just keep filling it. So I'll try to get silverish tones for this one. I will say all layers, use all layers. So that will, okay. And I will use a darker gray for this. There is a watermark because it's a thumbnail, so I don't want to erode the copyright, but I'll just do a decent coloring exercise as much as I can. And I'll get my blue again. So suppose you want to pick up a color. Suppose you want to pick up a color from the canvas, you press the Alt key. See that? Your cursor changes to a dropper tool. When you press the Alt key, you can say I want this color back, bang. Okay. So I've got my sword here. And what do I do with it? I showed you a tool, burn and dodge. So you can see if I dodge it, my sword, and I change the brush a bit, you can see my sword suddenly becomes metallic and shiny. And if you press the shift key, it goes in straight lines. See that? I'm just clicking and the shift key is taking care of the sheen. If I go to the burn tool, and you can see there. Cool. So I get my shiny little sword. It's made it darker than I want, but that's okay. A bit darker there and lighter here. And you can see I don't want the shadows to be dark. I want the midtones to be dark, and it gives you a slightly different result. That's one thing. And monochromatic means I'll stick within a range, okay? So I'll stick within the bluish range or a cold range. I'm going to stick within a range of colors. And You can get rid of the blacks as well, no problem. With a color, with the Alt key, pick up the original color, and you can keep on going. So I'll just pick this up and with a darker color at the bottom, darker color here, probably darker color here, and you can zoom in and go and pick up those. The space bar allows you to pan, so you can zoom in and pick up those little bit pieces here. There. Again, try and go and pick up a color for his uniform, for his dress. Let's see. So I'm going to try and keep this guy a bit more brighter. Get a slightly different color for the gloves. And every time I want something not flat, but I have these dark shadows, but if I don't want the color flat, I will go and pick up my burn and dodge tool. So if you can see, I'm giving it a shading, and you can see now it suddenly looks a bit more rounded with that shading. With the burning makes it dark, burnt toast, think burnt toast, and dodging makes it bright. So you can see I get a bit more roundedness there. And the shading here I'm not happy with, but yeah, that's just to give you an idea. Eventually, what can you do with this? You can always select this fella here and give him your outer glow to stand out. You want him going further into the ground. You can select all the layers, move him, and so on. If it was a contrasting color scheme, I would have used two sets of colors. I'm going to cheat right now. I'm going to cheat by just changing my colors hue, image, adjustment, hue, saturation. My foreground color would be somewhere in this range, in the orangish yellow range, green range. So somewhere here I would have my color scheme. Yeah. So that would be my foreground color scheme. I wouldn't need a glow because the color scheme itself would stand out. So these are the things you need to do for color scheme. You can use any picture you like. So you like manga art, you can use a manga art. I just have got some samples there. You don't have to use my samples. You can really use anything. I just wanted to keep it in the theme of the course of assignments. But two color schemes is what we are after. A monochromatic scheme and a contrasting scheme. Any questions?